Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's special meeting of the Council's Executive. Two main items of business tonight. The first one to look about proposals on consulting on an Article 4 direction on HMOs, and the second one is dealing with the scrutiny review, which Councillor Lambert has joined us for. So, going through the agenda, item number 1, apologies. I think we are all here. Bill Cullen, obviously, who's been in hospital today, so we will send him our best wishes. Additional urgent business, there is none. Declarations of interest? No declarations of interest, thank you. Questions? There are no formal tabled questions. Issues arising from overview and scrutiny. Well, we've obviously got the one that's on item 7. So we now move on to the main, or one of the main items of business, Article 4 direction, item number 6. Maddie Shallard to present the report, please.
Thank you. Good evening, all. So, this report seeks executive approval to begin a statutory consultation on a proposed Article 4 direction covering parts of Hinckley Town Centre and surrounding areas, or surrounding streets rather. The intention is to manage the future growth of houses in multiple occupation, HMOs, by removing permitted development rights for changes from Class C3 dwelling houses to Class 4 small HMOs within a defined area. The proposal is driven by emerging evidence showing an increase in HMO concentrations in certain locations and the cumulative impact this can have on residential character, amenity, parking, waste management and community balance. While individual conversions may appear acceptable in isolation, their combined effect can place pressure on local infrastructure and alter the nature of established neighbourhoods. An Article 4 direction would not prevent HMOs outright. Instead, it would require future conversions to apply for full planning permission, allowing the Council to properly assess each proposal and consider its wider impacts before a decision is made. At this stage, the report does not ask the Executive to confirm the Article 4 direction. It seeks approval to undertake statutory public consultation, giving residents, landlords, businesses and other stakeholders the opportunity to comment on the proposal and the defined area. A mixed method of consultation will ensure accessibility for all residents, including those affected by digital exclusion. This will include a dedicated website page, online surveys, social media activity and press releases, alongside non-digital methods such as site notices, notices in parks and council facilities, and paper copies available on request. Following the consultation, responses will be reviewed and a further report will be brought back to the Executive. This will include an assessment of feedback and a recommendation on whether the Article 4 direction should be confirmed, amended or withdrawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Any further officers want to comment before I go to members? No? Okay, well, I'll start, and I want to formally move the recommendation that we do start on this particular journey. I think most people out there, and I think us as councillors as well, are absolutely scratching our heads to understand why these conversions don't require full planning permission already, but they don't, and it is, you know, the problems. We've heard of a number of problems. The director has highlighted some of these. I've had the pleasure of representing the Queen's Road area since 2007, and I can say that this really is causing major issues for the people who live down there. People's lives are being made a misery through some of these conversions, and I'm going to raise some of the issues now because people have raised them with me, and I know our head of planning is here, our director here in charge of planning, and he's going to take a lot of these back, although the number of these have been already raised. And I'm being told about noise going through to all hours of the morning, 5 a.m. and other things that were being done. I'm being told about, well, excessive noise at all times, but unsociable hours. I'm told about building practices, appropriate clothing and headwear and things like that not being followed. I'm told about skips being left in the road unlit, causing dangers to traffic. I'm told about the pavements being blocked, people having to walk into the road. I'm being told about cars blocking the roads, causing major inconvenience. We all know, anybody who's driven down Queen's Road and that area knows that you can only usually get one way anyway because of the parking at either side. It really, really is appalling, and in addition to this work today, we really do need to ensure that all the regulatory services, planning enforcement, environmental health, highways, etc., crack down on some of these issues that we are seeing. It is just not acceptable. A couple of questions from me. How quickly can we start this consultation, please? I know Councillor Lambert, when I spoke to him about this, has raised the point where this has happened elsewhere, that what happens is that quite often, if people then start buying up houses on the edge of the zone and it expands the problem, we get a lot of displacement. So how quickly, how can we keep I want assurances that we can keep the area where it's covered under review constantly, and if we do see a problem emerging elsewhere, that we can start the consultations. And is there a way that we can make sure that we can use the council procedures to do this quickly in future? Yeah, and just also finally, I think you've touched on this. There will be people here tonight watching online and saying, well, actually, we've had one of these come up in my street, it's caused me problems. Why are we not doing a borough-wide or even a town-wide ban? Why are we doing this specific zone? If those questions could be answered, and then I'll ask Councillor Mullany to second the report. Thank you.
Thank you, certainly. So in terms of the time frame around this, certainly consultation can pretty much commence as soon as we've drafted the paperwork, etc. So we'll be making that a priority after today if it's agreed to do so. I think in terms of displacement, absolutely, we recognise that that's a consideration, and certainly we'll be looking at ongoing monitoring to make sure that we're not seeing these impacts in a wider area. And certainly that area is defined currently for consultation purposes, but is subject to change. I think importantly, to remain agile, the executive might wish to delegate authority to senior officers in conjunction with the lead portfolio holder, so that we can keep that under review going forward. And then finally, in terms of that approach, I mean, certainly the legislation is clear that it needs to be measured and proportionate and evidence-led, and certainly the red line map that we're looking at currently is where we are seeing those impacts. So it's reflective of that, and it wouldn't be appropriate or necessary or proportionate to look at anything beyond in terms of a borough-wide approach.
Thank you. Councillor Mullany.
Thank you. So I've had a number of residents contact me about this issue because there has been a sort of concentration of these applications, particularly in the Factory Road and Upper Bond Street area of the town. And again, there's concerns that obviously these are areas which already have issues with parking problems, and this is obviously going to make that worse if there are a series of these developments happening there. And also, similar to what Councillor Bray said, there's been a number of complaints about the way in which the work's been conducted in terms of skips being left on roads and other antisocial methods of carrying out the work, which has made a lot of residents' lives quite a misery. So certainly I'd support this as a start, and will second it and support it today.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgkins.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of my questions would be, for HMO, what is the minimum? How many people would be the minimum, and then after that you class it as a HMO? Because I mean, you could add the people just two sharing a house sort of thing, so I just want to make sure that we have a lot in Derby Road, Alma Road, New Street. I don't know if they're all owned by the same person. They like to keep them close, these buildings, but we've had quite a few done up down there. They've done them nice, I'm not saying they haven't, and I think there is a place for these HMOs for people who can't afford, the youngsters who can't afford to go out there and buy a house or whatever, or they're coming out of a care situation and they have to go somewhere. So we have to be careful we don't sort of discriminate against them. But I do agree that these terraced houses, where there's no parking anyway, I mean, I drive down Queen's Road quite regularly, there's no parking there for the residents half the time, let alone putting 6 or 7 people in one house, and if they all get a car, then where's everybody going to go? It's not, so it does need to be spread out. And I think the other problem we're having is management of these places. Being on executive for the refuse, I do go out and I do see refuse bins just sitting on the street. Alma Road is a specific one. Years I've been trying to get this rubbish off this street, and they still keep put, because the tenants change, they put somebody else will leave the bin out for weeks, and it's only a thin pavement, and I'm getting complaints there from residents. So it is something that needs to be, perhaps with the HMOs, they need to put forward a management plan of how they're going to keep this place tidy, how they're going to look after the neighbourhood, shall we say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodge. Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. You know my frustration and share that with the permitted development and the significant watering down over the years and possibly to be further watered down into the future. So I'll not go there, Chair, but a healthy turnout of audience this evening clearly got concerns about this. It's demonstrated by the public gallery. I'm sure there's many more people online and some people that couldn't have made it. What I'd like to say, though, Chair, is the fastest this consultation can be done and approached along the lines of your question, I would welcome that and urge everyone, whether they're viewing online or whether they've got neighbours or friends or colleagues that want to actually consult with this consultation. They don't leave it to somebody else and believe that somebody else will do it for them. But if they feel passionate enough about it, then to engage in that consultation process, because the outcome of that dictates the future. So support it being done as quickly as possible, but urge people to engage in the consultation process once it opens.
Thank you, Councillor Cartwright. Councillor Bulls.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And I think this is a real positive step in the right direction, as Councillor Bray said. We all did actually, when we've got a HMO in New Bolverdon where I represent, and they aren't restricted actually to the urban conurbations, if you like. They have spread out now wider across the borough. And obviously we had a situation where they put in an application for a larger amount of, I think, rooms. I think it was about 8, and then he brought it down below a limit. So my question is similar to Councillor Hodgkins there is, does this cover all HMOs, or is it only those above that threshold which we had before at planning? Because I think that's a really important clarification as well. But like I said, I fully support this. This is a really important step in the right direction of not stopping these. It's about making sure the distribution's right, that we have the facilities in place, and again, making sure enforcement are joined as part of this, that the health and safety people are as well, because there are wider problems that isn't just about who lives there or where they come or where they park. It's actually about the change of the feel and why people enjoyed living there in the first place. And as soon as we lose that identity, it just becomes another area, and it's not. These are areas which are people who lived in a long time and they feel a deep connection to them. So it's important to retain that for as long as we can and protect it. So fully support this.
Thank you. Any further member comments? Councillor Lynch.
I think, Chairman, with the greatest respect, we should be aware of a few things around this. Number one, the decent HMOs do serve a very necessary purpose for young people, particularly, who perhaps don't have the wherewithal to accommodate themselves more suitably. Perhaps I'm in a different position. I've probably designed 50 of these things, and for different owners, and they've gone from superb, some of the ones built by housing associations or converted by housing associations, to pretty awful. But there are several things about this you should be aware of and bear in mind. There's reference to skips on road. Having planning permission doesn't remove the skips from the road. That's a matter of management. Noise. Again, planning permission doesn't remove that. That's a matter of management. Parking, that's very interesting. How many times have we sat in planning committee or spoken to planning officers before planning committee and said, why are we passing this block of flats here with 12 parking spaces for 30 people? I'm told, well, because of city centre or town centre facilities available to them and so on and so forth. We come to this article, and one of the big complaints here, the big concerns here, quite rightly, don't get me wrong, is there are too many cars. So we just bear in mind that when we come to some of these other applications, whatever the rules say, we should bear that carefully in mind. Having said that, Chairman, I have seen areas in which these things have taken over, and they are, when they get beyond a certain point, they are detrimental to the area, and I'm fully in support of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Bill?
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this subject. HMOs are becoming a real problem in some areas for residents, and we've heard about all the complaints that have come forward. We've got one in my area, and it's been there 10 or 12 years, and it's managed right, and it's fine. There's one in Balston. But I welcome this being brought up, and the only trouble is I can see with it is we're only being able to put it in a certain area, and that could move the problem elsewhere. But hopefully this committee will revisit the problem and you know, carry on from there. But thank you for that.
Councillor Hodgkins, do you want to come back?
Yeah, sorry, just one more question. Back opposite where I was living, there was a HMO run absolutely lovely. The house is done lovely, they've done up the front, it's really nice, they're looking after it really well. And they've been there over a year, no problems whatsoever. And then you've got a few further up the road that are going a bit, you know, downhill. Can we shut an HMO down if it gets really bad? Do we have any powers? Yeah, thanks, that's it.
Would officers like to address, there's several points that people have raised. If officers could address them, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll pick up some of the initial points that were raised. So there was a question around numbers of individual occupants that effectively the Article 4 would apply to and what difference that would make. So at the moment, a HMO of more than 6 individuals, so effectively 7 individuals or more, does require planning permission. So effectively permitted development applies for any HMO up to including 6 individuals. This Article 4 direction would change that, so effectively a HMO requiring planning permission would start at 3 individuals. So on the basis, 1 is a single occupier, 2 is 2 people living together individually, 3 or more becomes then a HMO. So effectively what this Article 4 would change would be that 3 to 6 individual occupants would now require planning permission, whereas at the moment they don't. So that effectively is a permitted development HMO. So that's the change in numbers. With regards to what considerations we can take into account, parking would be a consideration we can take into account as part of any full application for a change of use to a HMO. At the moment, obviously, we don't because it's their permitted development, so therefore there is no considerations, but parking would be a consideration. I can't promise what the outcome would be, but it would be a consideration that we would have to be assessed as part of every application and in consultation with county highways as well. Just to pick up on a few street names were mentioned, I think particularly by you, Councillor Hodgkins, they would all be included. So the streets that you mentioned are all included as part of the Article 4 direction as well. With regards to your final question, I think, can we shut one down? So effectively, if one comes in through the Article 4 comes in, planning application comes in, one is then occupied. If there's certain conditions that aren't being met from that planning permission, then we can enforce planning permission. And separate to all of this, there's the separate licensing process as well. So that's separate altogether from the Article 4. The Article 4 is a planning process. There's a separate licensing process as well, which at the moment applies to all HMOs of 5 individuals or above. So therefore, if there was a licence in place and there was restrictions on that licence which weren't being met, then again, there can be separate enforcement action that way as well. Thank you.
Maddie, did you want to add anything else?
No, just to concur with some of the points really, and particularly Councillor Lynch's point in terms of HMOs and meeting housing need. I think absolutely we recognise that there is certainly a need, you know, in terms of housing more generally, but I guess it's just to remember the kind of localised impact that we've talked about really, hence why we've brought the report forward today, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to clarify, I did make it clear when I made my comments that I was talking. There was 2 issues. I was number 1 raising the future about how we deal with this, but also I just wanted while we've got the director here to put on record some of the issues that we are having in Queen's Road, and I know he's made an assistant director, and I know he's made a note for those. So thank you very much for that. I am going to say do 2 additional things. We've got the recommendation, which is 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. With Councillor Manning's permission as a seconder, I'm also going to add 2 additional recommendations. Number 1, that we do input some delegation in for Maddie in conjunction with myself to ensure that we can be agile, as to use Maddie's phrase, so we can move quickly to increase the area should it be necessary beyond what we're doing. And number 2, I also think that we've heard a lot of concerns raised by members about the impacts that these are having on some community cohesions, and I think the government need to be aware of this, and I think that we need to draft a letter from me to the various ministers or the minister concerned to make sure that he is absolutely aware of what is going on in Hinckley, and making sure that, as part of, because I know we do have to refer to him on if we go down the route of implementing this, but he needs to understand very clearly the impact this is having on people that in our area. Any further comments? So I move the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Laney. All in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. So we will now move forward on consultation as soon as we possibly can, with a view to report to him coming back. Thank you. People in the gallery, you are more than welcome to stay for the other item of the business, or if you wish to leave now, you can do so. Thank you. So we're moving on then to the next item, which is I'll just give people 2 minutes just to... Right, so we move on to item 7, and this is another welcome report, scrutiny review into the adoption of infrastructure associated with housing developments. I'll hand over to Councillor Lambert to present the report, and in doing so, would like to thank him and Councillor Williams and everybody else who on scrutiny for undertaking this valuable piece of work. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for agreeing to put this item on your special meeting agenda to progress it more promptly. Apologies from Councillor Paul Williams tonight. He led the group, so I feel like I'm trying to take some credit for his work. He was very effective leader of that particular piece of work. It's the second review in the series that we've been undertaking, and the detailed report of the outcome is before you, with witnesses called from various bodies. It was identified in an issue in our work programme going back to 2023, in the summer of 23, so it actually came from members of the committee who were anxious to look at this area. Attendance at some of the working groups was a bit of an issue, and that's something that we need to take into account going forward, because again, there's a lot of demands on members' time, and we want to make sure that people can deliver on their commitments to these things. There are a series of recommendations, 2.1 to 2.14, which I hope are self-explanatory, but I'm happy to take any questions from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'll hand over to Councillor Crooks, his portfolio.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report. As members all know from their own areas, there are considerable problems with unadopted roads in particular. I've got 3 in my area, and there's certainly at least 2 in Newbold. And over the years, no repairs done, street lights don't work, and nowhere to go. You can't get anything done, and they seem to think that the parish council is going to take up the slack, and they haven't got the funding to do it. So I think that we should have been tackling this before, but I welcome it now. Just the extra amendment 2.15 to go in with this. Apparently there is a survey being carried on at the same time, so we'll have to come back to it to adjust this report if needed.
As I understand, there's a national consultation being done, and we're saying that we're using the basis of this report as part of that consultation. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Okay. So I'm happy to second the report. Councillor Lynch.
Chairman, I absolutely welcome this. I'm just amazed it's taken so long. I've been advocating that all new estates should have adoptable roads and adopted roads and footpaths and green areas for 40 years. I mean, I remember years ago when I first joined the practice I was with for 40 years, we designed the flower estate. And I complained long and loud to the developer about those parking areas which were going to deteriorate. Go up there and have a look at them now. As you see those now, so you will see the unadopted roads in 30 or 40 years' time. This isn't just a little problem, it's an absolutely monumental problem. I mean, you're talking billions of pounds worth of damage, and there is no fund for it. They don't tell these people when they buy these houses, one day you or your successors will be into paying a lot for having those roads relaid. They don't say you must pay £100 a year into a sinking fund to have those roads repaired in 40 years' time. They just let it happen. And it's all to save the county councils and the developers and the government, let's face it, money. And it's absolutely criminal. I do congratulate Chris's commission on having come up with this. I just wish you'd done it, or we'd been able to do it 30 years ago. Thank you, Chair.
We've all got problems in our patches with unadopted roads, and we know what we've got. And you know, when we hear examples such as this, we raised this at a planning committee meeting not that long ago. I think it was over a scheme in Councillor Bulls's ward in Desford. And the housing developer had the nerve to dob us into the planning advisory because we asked for a delay so we could try and get some of these issues addressed. So this is what we're up against. And I sent the planning advisory service off with a flea in their ear over it as well, because frankly, it is what we are here for. We are here to try and get the best deal for our residents. And we know that these estates, where unadopted roads, we know that it is storing up problems for future generations. I look at the costs. You know, and I look at we spent a little bit of money on Davenport Terrace, Gladstone Terrace, Hayes Lane, which is very specific roads in that whilst they are private unadopted, they do lead to public facilities, i.e. one of them is our park, another one is the school. And we put in small amounts of, relatively small amounts of money, you know, a few £1,000s, and the amount of works, you know, it was effectively filling in a few little potholes. It costs thousands of pounds, and residents will not have the money to repair these roads in years ahead. And it is absolutely incredible that they're allowed to be able to build them, and we can't block them as a planning authority because of this. And when we do try and ask them to do it, they moan about us to the government and try and yeah, it's just unbelievable. Councillor Cartwright, I'll come back to you at the end, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very, very serious issue, and one we've been complaining about for such a long time. And it has resource and cost implications way into the future. We've got a couple in Groovy, for instance, where the bin lorry can't turn around on a private road, so it has to reverse in. That's a health and safety issue. The road was unadopted. It wasn't strong enough to take the bin lorry, so we got sued. So we can't take the bin lorry down there anymore. Well, what happens with that? Predominantly elderly people. We ended up having to do an assisted collection for every house on the road, simply because we can't get the bin lorry in there. I mean, we're talking about the health and safety of residents, our crews, and the general public, because often these unadopted roads don't have a safe area to put the bins on bin collection day while you wait, even if they were able to. So they don't seem to understand that these things have a massive cost implication and cause, far apart from the residents actually with an unadopted road needing maintenance, and you've got 20 houses, 17 agree to pay towards it, the other 3 don't, and then nothing happens because everybody says, well, I'm not paying because the other 17, I've only got a 1 in 17 share of it, despite what the deeds and the covenants say and the solicitors' arguments. They're just a nightmare, absolute nightmare. They're a nightmare to us for our bin crews, and we have to be first and foremost look after those. We also need to look after our residents using the example I said. You know, reversing bin lorries because they can't turn around is a health and safety risk of a huge magnitude. And then the roads are just not capable of taking a bin lorry's weight anyway, which are going to get heavy if we came to electric fleet in the future. So watch out for more and more roads that are passable now with the trucks we've got that won't be when they weigh a lot more when they're electrified. So I support this entirely. And, you know, it's just a frustration that we keep having this same conversation and those that should be listening aren't, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Bowles?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I do want to thank you, Chair, for speaking on behalf of Desford, because I think we both were gobsmacked when we found out that he'd gone and complained, because, yeah, I think it's our fundamental right to be able to challenge developments when they aren't right and they aren't appropriate. And we've already pushed to try and get the best possible outcome. It's not just Davison's, though, and it's, we had Bellway in Desford who refused to adopt and actually do what they were meant to do when it came to the plans for green space. Didn't ever complete their works. Residents were like, what's going on? You go back time and time again, you take officers, waste officers' time, dragging them down, seeing the problem. They won't accept their responsibility. In Blaws, in New Bolverden, a good developer, yet won't put an extra light in outside of sheltered accommodation bungalows. If the residents want it, they have to pay. These are older people who are struggling to make ends meet. And if they want a light, it's pitch black in this corner, they won't do it because it's non-adopted. So it's not just roads. It has a huge accumulation, again, of problems. And it's developers trying to make money over actually doing the problem. And just I'm glad Councillor Lynch mentioned the county, because I was at a scrutiny meeting for county the other day. And they've got this harebrained scheme to go out to parish councils and ask them to start adopting roads and highways and footpaths and fix them. It just pushes more responsibility on people who can't afford it. Parish councils are in no, you know, they don't have the finances to support this. And I see green space adoption by parish councils are in here. There needs to be money given to them if they're going to be done that. But yeah, it's a massive problem, and I'm glad to see something's finally being done about it. Thank you.
Well, I have to say, if I had my way, I would turn around to these developers who fail to, who welch on what they've agreed to do and don't do these things, and say, well, we won't validate your next planning application until you've completed the previous one. But you know, we know what will happen if we do that. They'll take us to start taking us to appeal for non-determination, and it'll end up costing taxpayers a lot of money, as well as we won't get anything from the development. Are there any other executive members want to make any further comment? Councillor Hodgkins, and I'll come back to you, Councillor Lambert, at the end.
Thank you. I just want to thank Councillor Lambert. I read this report, and I was pretty pleased with it. You know, I mean, they come up with the scrutiny committee have come up with some really good, valid points here that does need sorting. And I do know from unadopted places or new builds that's coming up, and can they get a refuse wagon down there? Well, not really, no, because it's not built to that standard, you know, to take the weight. So it does cause us problems. So now, welcome this report, and well done to the scrutiny team.
Councillor Mullaney.
It's just really to endorse all the comments, I mean, and thank the committee for their report. I mean, there is an increasing number of unadopted roads across the borough, and the residents who live on those roads, lives are made more difficult because of it, and therefore, you know, it is time that the developers do act in the way they should and ensure that these roads are brought up to an adoptable standard so the residents can rely on the services that they should expect. So certainly I support this, and obviously any pressure we can put on the developers to deal with this and bring the roads up to adoptable standard is certainly something I would support.
And finally, from the Executive, Councillor Crooks.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing that I've come across is that some residents are actually paying a standing charge for their maintenance, and they're saying, well, why are we paying council tax then to get the roads and things mended, and we're having to pay another charge because it's not covered. So even that's, you know, not fair to residents. It really does need sorting out, and I'm glad to see this report.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Yes, thank you for letting me come back in, Chair. It was just a couple of things that I was remiss about leaving out of my introduction. The first one was to thank our witnesses, but the second one was to thank the officers, because without their professionalism and commitment to this process, we would not have been able to produce the quality of the document that you have before you today. So that was all I just wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any officers want to comment at this stage? Chris?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say, the officers support the recommendations of the report. As Councillor Lambert said, the officers were involved throughout the process, attended the meetings. More than happy to support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. So the recommendations are set out with an additional recommendation that this report is used as the basis to respond to the government's consultation. Moved by Councillor Crooks, seconded by myself. Those in favour? Again, that is unanimous. Thank you very much, and that is the end of the business for tonight. Thank you.